Morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here because I was here for the first MindTech Symposium, and I'm really grateful, Chris, for the invitation to join you today. Because since 2013, when MindTech was established as the only NIHR healthcare technology cooperative which focuses on mental health, it's really established itself as a centre of expertise for developing medical and digital technologies for mental health. And the programmes for these symposiums have all had a slightly different flavour as the field has evolved. But today, whether you're here as someone with lived experience who's come here to share your insights, whether you're here as an SME wondering whether to pursue your innovation within the National Health Service, whether you are a clinician who's come here to learn more about how to accelerate the adoption of proven digital technologies in the NHS, or whether you are a patient, a service user, or the friend or relative of someone with mental ill health and have come here to hear about what's on the horizon that might help you, your loved one, or your friend. There is something in this programme for everyone. You will not go away disappointed in today's programme. So, you as an audience will be very familiar with the fact that over recent months in particular, the issue of mental health has really risen up the political agenda, and justifiably so, because of the prevalence of mental ill health, the suffering it causes, and the impact that it has on the economy. Most recently, some of you may have seen last week that the Department of Health issued a green paper on children and young people's mental health. And I just want to encourage you to respond to that consultation, which is open over the festive period into early next year. So you know that mental illness can affect anyone, irrespective of their age, their gender, their background. And 1 in 6 of us is going to have one of the common mental illnesses in our lifetime. 1 in 10 children aged between 5 and 16 years have a mental health problem, and many of those continue into adulthood. And for me, one of the really stark statistics is that half of those with lifetime mental health problems first experience symptoms by the age of 14 and 3/4 by the time that they're in the mid-20s. And that's a really, really important message for us as we think about the research environment for the future. So improving outcomes for mental health is really vital for the nation, and research has got a key part to play in delivering that. So some of you will have seen yesterday the Life Sciences sector deal, which is the first part of the government's response to the Life Sciences Industrial Strategy, which profiles the role of NHS collaboration in delivering better digital healthcare for our population. So through the National Institute for Health Research, we have made year-on-year increases in our funding for mental health research, along with other major funders. So last year, we were investing £76 million in mental health research. So second only to cancer in terms of our condition-specific investment. But as I'll reflect later, putting money into the field is necessary but not sufficient to get us to where we need to get to. Those of you who follow the history of NIHR will be aware that we've increased investment in infrastructure for mental health for our biomedical research centres. So we've now got 2 centres which focus on mental ill health, as well as a number which have mental ill health themes. Our collaborations for leadership in health research and care, the more applied infrastructure to support health and care research, a number of them also focus on mental ill health. Our clinical research network, last year 40,000 people participated in over 275 mental health studies last year. So we have some infrastructure there which sets a firm foundation for the future. And for the first time, we funded a mental health policy research unit at King's College. That was announced a couple of weeks ago. So turning to MindTech, I think Chris and the team, you can be really, really proud of what you've done to advance the effectiveness and availability of mental health digital interventions for NHS patients. The raison d'etre for the 8 healthcare technology cooperatives that we funded was to really focus on patient pull and clinician pull from the NHS in areas of huge morbidity, where there was opportunity for actually quite a big step change, working in particular with industry and with a particular focus on SMEs. And I think what you'll hear today is how successful the MindTech HTC has been, both with traditional life sciences companies, but also with the creative industries and others, as well as having a really firm foundation in working with service users and patients. So HTCs weren't set up to deliver large-scale trials. They were really focused on helping develop the evidence base that would enable researchers and collaborating industry to attract follow-on funding. So putting the patient voice at the heart of research has always been a fundamental principle of NIHR. And that's why I was particularly pleased to see the work that's been led by the HTC with the priority setting partnerships, looking at what the key questions from a patient service user perspective are on the use of digital for mental health. And Chris is going to talk about that shortly. The results of that exercise are due in spring, so that's going to be perfect to inform the future of the MedTech and in vitro diagnostics collaborative, the rebranding of MindTech for the future. Now, I said earlier that funding for research is necessary but not sufficient. And one of the recommendations of the 5-year forward view for mental health was that the UK should aspire to be a world leader in the development and application of new mental health research. And we have been, in the Department of Health, leading a group which has aimed to provide a collective view of how mental health research should move forward over the next decade, and critically, how research evidence should be accelerated to drive progress and improve lives. Now, that framework has involved researchers, research funders, service users, people with lived experience of mental ill health, research charities and so on. And there have been 4 working groups that have informed the work. Now, I'm just looking for my team to find out whether this framework has yet been published. It's due to be published today. It's still imminent, but you heard about it here first, folks. So, Chris Whitty, the government's chief scientific advisor, has led the working group. It's focused on basic research, translational research, health services and population research, and children's and young people's mental health research. And we've had people with lived experience co-chair each of the working groups to make sure that patients are at the centre of the recommendations. So the group has concluded that the evidence demonstrates that the UK is indeed a leader in mental health research with a proven track record. However, the mental health research base in the UK is small and quite geographically discrete, highly concentrated, and unlike other professions, there are relatively few people who are trained in psychiatry or related disciplines and research. So this puts a limit on the rate at which we can expand mental health research if we're still to focus on good quality, robust research. So will be for the future a focus on how we broaden the attractiveness of mental health research, how we attract new people in with new skills, with digital health skills, anthropologists and so on. How we make sure that people who move into mental ill health research continue, that there are clear career pathways that make sure that the field can really develop. So you will see in the report that should be published today that the group has looked at a number of opportunities and barriers. So just to quickly reprise these. They've examined the life course approach, being particularly mindful of those stats that I talked about at the beginning, about the number of people who start with mental ill health in early childhood. They focused on patient and public involvement and how we diversify that, how we involve more children and young people, how we involve a greater range of people in informing the research, how we address the disconnect between mental health and physical ill health, how we better coordinate the infrastructure, how people get better access to cohorts, biobanks, tissues, and so on. How we realise the potential of big data and informatics. How we look at more research in other settings, be they schools, workplaces, prisons, and so on. It can't just be about what happens within the NHS. What can we do to re-engage the life sciences industry in the field, or even share kit potentially with them, get access to some of their ligands? And what do we need to do in the field of regulation, governance and ethics? So you will see that the framework, the 10-year framework, makes recommendations about mental health inequalities, accelerating the pace of change in development and implementation, expanding the use and linkage of digital data, and ensuring that greater diversity of involvement of people in mental health research. And research funders are going to be coming together on the 15th of December to discuss the next steps. And if I can suggest that you look out on the NIHR website for a funding announcement that will accompany the publication of the strategy. So you will see from that there are going to be plenty of opportunities for you to apply for funding specifically focused on the application of digital technologies to mental health research. So I think that there's great and justifiable optimism for research, mental health research in the UK and what we can do. We've demonstrated already that we have leadership in a number of fields. So peer research and patient involvement, digital development, neuroscience, epidemiology, research with children. We know that our research-led programmes have shown that the effectiveness of large-scale programmes, talking therapies and so on, anti-stigma programmes like the Time to Change. So we can be proud that we've got a great base, but we absolutely need to increase the ambition. And the framework is there to support that ambition across funders, across service users and others, to make sure that we harness what I think is a unique moment for mental health. We absolutely need to grasp this, this opportunity when there is huge political focus on mental ill health. So MindTech is going to have an important role to play, an important focus in that. So I hope you're going to have a great day. I think Chris and colleagues have brought together a great programme. I'm looking forward to meeting some of you and seeing the posters at the interval. Thanks, folks.